Thank you for joining us once again. We would like to begin this interview, first of all, with the National Assembly Select Committee in the wake of the damning revelations about the status or welfare of the country's security forces. They suggested that the budget should be augmented to help the country's security forces live at least standard lifestyle and also proper remuneration. What is your take on this?
Um, it's unfortunate that our leaders, especially our representative in the House, are not actually asking the right questions, or they're not looking at the right place they should be focusing on. You see, um, you cannot just ask for extra money. For the security forces when we have an economy that we have. Our economy is technically based on taxation. The economy is based on taxation. The revenue, bulk of our revenue comes from taxes. We are not producing anything. The country is not productive. And there's so much corruption going on. Now, if we are not addressing the productivity of the country, we are not addressing the budget disciplines. You can prepare so much. You can throw so much resources to it, but it will be counterproductive. It will be counterproductive. But let's come back to this. Every time they go out there to visit the forces, they'll come back with the same report. The housing is inadequate or in bad condition. The feeding or the ration, it's kind of a problematic. Equipment's lacking, and so on and so forth. This is not the first year they made this report. Even the chief of, the latest couple of months ago, the chief of staff went round and came back and engaged the soldiers, and the soldiers said the same thing to him. Where does this problem lies? You see, what they say, you cut your coat according to your size. We don't expect Gambia, a small economy, a small country, to have an army that they cannot even put into use. We should ask ourselves, what sort of army do we need? What we have now is distorted. Institutions are built according to need. If you don't need something, you don't need to build it. Then it becomes a waste. If it's just like now, you have your compound. If you build extra houses that you have no need, either you don't need it for your own family or friends, you don't need it because you can't rent it out. What's the point of building those houses? This is why we come to looking at the security sector reform.
Are you suggesting that the army should be downsized or the security forces should be
The
downsized?
security sector reform, I don't like this preempting to say downsides. In every issue that you approach, what you do first is to investigate it. You have to review it before you talk about downsides. Your review will determine whether to downsize or not, isn't it? But we have to understand something. If we come out from a dictatorship, a military for a dictatorship is different from military for a civilian government. We have to understand something. If we come out from a dictatorship, a military for a dictatorship is different from military for a civilian government. Because a dictatorship lacks legitimacy. A dictatorship feels insecure. Then there's a need for them to build bigger security forces and to use those security forces to continue entrenching themselves. In a democracy, the governance is by consent. We have ways and means to approach our problems. The government need to make sure they are effective, need to make sure they are accountable. These are the major issues that would guarantee our security. But building big armies does not give you security. Now, we need to ask ourselves, what do we need our army for? The need first. Are we ever going to war? If you ask yourself that question, or can we ever sustain a war? We can't. We are a small nation. Our geographical location locked us inside Senegal. If we are going to war, it's not with Guinea-Bissau. It's not with Guinea-Conakry. It's not with Mauritania. It's not with any other country. If it will ever happen, would be with Senegal. A defense review. Countries do defense review. That's why you can go to certain countries, technically they don't have an army because there's no need for an army. They have a force that does a lot of stuff that some militaries do. They have a civil defense force to do development work, to do security, some sort of security work, to do some internal security work, but most of their work is not meant for defend the territory of their country because they have applied many mechanisms. When they reviewed it, they looked at it. There's no way. Some countries will review and decide this is what we can afford, or this is the rational thing or the prudent thing to put in place and call it an armed forces or an army. Let me give you an example of Scandinavia. Until recently, most of the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Finland, others, were not part of NATO because at that time they did not see the need to be part of NATO. But that's why when you do reviews, you do periodical review. Periodical review, what that means is you find, let's say, you can even put into say every 3 years we will review our defense policy. Or something have changed in your geopolitics, which just as when the Ukraine war happened, Finland, Sweden have to review their things to see what threat does the country face. Now, how do we make example like when Senegal, even and Mauritania, it was very hostile, but they avoided going to war. If war was going to happen, would be between them. But countries don't take war very cheaply. And what averted that war was actually ECOWAS. ECOWAS, in what sense? Sadauda was the chairman, our former president, who straight away took up his responsibility and sent Abbas Bundu, who was the one of the officers, I forgot his position at the ECOWAS then, to go straight. I think President, of course.
With the number of security forces we have in the country, in your perspective, are you putting it clearly that it's not needed, it is too much?
No, I'm putting it this way on your first, this thing is money should be used prudently for economic development. Now, what I'm saying is we need a security sector reform. When you do security sector reform, do a review. They said they did a security sector reform. If they have done it, they would not have inquired these problems. Because when you do a security sector reform and you do your defense reviews, you will see the need factor. And need factor would tell you about equipments and strength and other stuff. Yeah? Even location, where strategically you think, because of it will come with a different strategy. The strategy will even tell you where do we need soldiers, what sort of soldiers do we need there. But part of one thing they fail to always do is sustainability. How do you make sure we can sustain this institution? The Gambia Army, for now, we believe it's a strength of 7,000. If you have 7,000 men and women, 80% of them get up every day go for exercise, do routine parades, and all other things, and go back to bed. Are they producing anything? They are consuming, but are they producing? Have we, because of their presence, does it provide any security? No. What about not having a strategy that those 80% of men and women will be productive and part of the economic development? This is where my idea is. The army should be most of part of the army. When you do a review, you see the need, you see the threat. And if we look at the threats, we'll understand what do we need. And we can subscribe to that. We have a threat where we might have insurgency. Yeah? Now, how do we deal with insurgency? The most important part of insurgency, to deal with insurgency, is good governance. This is the fact they don't want to talk about. Countries that goes into civil crisis is because of there are inequalities that force others to take arms. Countries that go into civil, civil crisis, this crisis that they, and fighting through insurgency and orders, is because of there's no democracy in that country. There are not, people are oppressed, people are suppressed. There's no other way for them to bring about change apart from the barrel of the gun. As a government, people are suffering in any other ways. It's easy to win the hearts and minds of those people and get them to be violent. That's why insurgencies happen. Two, if you have a system within, you call it a democracy, but everybody will realize that, look, people are not allowed to demonstrate. People are not allowed to show their frustration. Demonstration, showing frustration, what it does is to allow the authorities to do things in the right way. Oh, people are angry. Let's do things before it goes out of hand. Because people don't just get up and get angry and demonstrate. It builds up because if they've been ignored to the level they said, now we need to come out. Because we have complained, we have done this, we have done nothing's improving, and we are seeing that these people are ignoring us. Let's call their attention. This is what demonstrations are. Now, if those demonstrations continue and nothing happens, and if elections are not fair and fair, and there's no way that change can happen through the ballot, what do you expect? People continue to suffer, die, starve? No. They will revolt. But yeah.
Now, let's talk about the issue of how to make optimal use of the taxpayers' money. People also have complained about the frequent travels, how that is also eating into.
No, I'll get to that. Let me get the drift of the need for the army. Yeah.
Okay.
This is why I said effective, because we cannot go into details in everything. Effective governance, accountability, and so on to happen. Now, when we talk about the armed forces, for that matter, not the army, the armed forces. Now, when you look at things, these are the things you think of to deal with the threat. The threat would be likely insurgency. But if you do these things, insurgency will not be likely. You are now reducing the factors that might lead to an insurgency. But again, you don't take it for granted. You say, in what if, after doing all this, other reasons arises beyond our control, be a geopolitics, be probably something happens in Mali and get into Senegal and get onto us. If something happens like that, what can we do? That's when contingency planning, you review that and say, then what size of an effective fighting force do we need? In order to deal with it, knowing that you have to have a way to deal with that. In a sense, before any help arises, you will be able to contain it. And if it's something more than what we think, always there are other That's why you have you have the defense strategy, would be your relationship with Senegal, your relationship with the sub-regional bodies. Because we belong to all these things, ECOWAS and others. Now, the third thing is, because those things, effective fighting force will come into many ways. It's not only for insurgents. My comment hijacking, hostage taking, and all those things. Those are the kind of forces you will have as effective for fighting force. And when you use these weapons, the cells, where the bullets, or you call them the cells in other big weapons, are very expensive. You see, there are many things that you do to keep forces in confined areas and all this kind of thing. Logistics and is expensive. Now, can we only depend on a budget from the taxpayers to sustain ourselves? No. What can we do? This is where my idea would be a pathway. The army should be a pathway for citizens. The army should be one of the biggest apprenticeship schemes for our country, where youths will go into train, and the time that they will be leaving the army, they have a trade. They have a trade. Be anything. The army can subscribe to that. That would be part of national development. Then that part of it, the higher education ministry and agriculture ministry and the fisheries ministry will have a part to play. We can develop fishermen and women. We need them. The entire population of fishermen and women in the Gambia are not Gambians. Most of it, let's say 90% of are not Gambians. Why can't we do it ourselves? It's a lucrative industry, isn't it? Yeah. We can modernize that. We can modernize that and get an industry out of it. An industry. There are many ways to do that. Now, if we train people, let's say in the Navy, the expertise that you get from the Navy, with recognized accreditations, you serve 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. When you leave the Navy, you are not only needed in our economy, but you can sell your trade to international bidders. You don't go out as someone plugging oranges or doing those stuff. You are going out there as an engineer. You are going there as an expert on something. Rather than throwing everybody in the university, they come out with social development degree, journalism degree, law degree, and all these degrees. Where are they going to apply their trade? You see my point? This is what is lacking. We are having an army like even developed nations. Do you know that the United Kingdom, the army is the biggest apprentice? Many youths are going to the army now to do cyber engineering. Because of the army is doing it because they need them. But again, when they leave the army, the country needs them. So we will be politicized now, especially with this internet. They are seeing what happened in Mali. They're seeing what happened in Burkina. Now, globally, I said, people are celebrating Tarawale, celebrating Goita, and others. You think that will not get to the heads of our soldiers? Now, if the opportunity presents itself, you think they will still sit in their barracks, knowing that they have all the skills to move and take over government? They will do it. This is why coup d'etats happen. This is, in a nutshell, Parliament going out there visiting their physical status. That's not the solution. It's a matter of looking at comprehensively, tangibly, what did the security sector reform effect? What's the effect of the security sector reform? Zero. In fact, it's getting worse.
Okay, now let's segue into the issue of how to make optimal use of our taxpayers' money. Travel is also one area where they think the leakages, from our treasury is also emanating from. aside from the the security sector reforms, and probably, like I suggested, whether we should downsize the country security forces, let's talk about the other aspect of the issue as well.
You see, again, that's why I said effective governance. Gambians love to point to symptoms, but rather than looking at the overall. If these things are happening, and we all know it's happening, why is it happening? Because we task a government to deliver. When COVID came about, didn't we cut almost 500 million from our budget? Because they cut on travel, they cut on some excuses they use as staff training. Because most part of this travel and training programs and stuff like that is a way of looting the coffers, legitimizing it. Travel, most of this traveling, they are not necessary. Why the government, if they really want to stop that, they can stop it. They can put in place a mechanism that will review any travel demand to see whether is it necessary or what is this travel going to bring for us. If you don't measure something, you cannot control it. You have to measure it. You have to have a way that you determine how these things are implemented. But they can go to any conference, anything they invited, they go. Because they will get money out of it. Now, if you think that the defense, if you look at the finance ministry, it's the same template he has from Jawara. The same template for budgeting from Jawara. In fact, from Jawara, there was a little bit of difference. Because from Jawara, we had parastatals them that reports their productivity or their financial statements, and they contribute to us. But now you don't even know what parastatals are doing. It will have to come from good governance. If the president himself is taking the opportunity, as let's say, when they were going to the UN, how many people they take? The Dusanos and everybody, because they are creating problems for them. I tell you, the president appointing Ibrahim Sankari as so-called diaspora advisor was to give him the opportunity so that he can be traveling on behalf of that title diaspora advisor, so that he can go for his medical this thing in America. You see, they look for loopholes for their people. Now, if the government is intentionally doing this, people should call them accountable. We are talking about travel. That's a symptom. What about what happened to Central Bank? The Bankers Bank, with ministries, finance, trade. Ministry of Trade, instead of looking at something prudent to make sure there's productivity in our commercial sectors, what did he do? Create a monopoly, and they always create a monopoly, cement monopoly, rice import and whatever monopolies, and for their what funds, so that they get kickbacks. This is why people in strategic position in government are rich, multimillionaires, but the rest of Gambians are poor. Let's talk about procurement. How many procurement scandals did you hear? What came out of it? Let's say just product procurements. You hear about, the last time we exposed so much that now it have to be forced to start their financial things, because we captured a conversation between the financial director and someone who supplies them in India. Look at what environment they created now. Even now, victimizing government traders, getting them out of the procurement, and even the procurement that was in fact put, the measures that were put in place to protect the interests of government traders, they are undermining. Indians who come in, they fast tag them and give them government citizenship. We know these people are genuinely wanting to be Gambians. They're buying their way through to buy a Gambian passport.
What do you make of the historic 25 individuals who were denied U.S. visa? I mean, if my memory serves me well, I don't think this has ever happened in the country. I mean, senior government officials, 25 of them, according to the newspaper, were denied visa.
I'm not surprised. Why they're going to go there for? It just tells you, as I said, they create things for their people. Why would do Sanos and all these people? Do they have any business to do that for government? No. They're doing it so that they
but it's not clear if Dusano was in the list this time.
No, but he was in the last list.
Yes.
That's why I said people like Dusano. What would Modu Sabali go and do there?
He's the presidential advisor. He's one of the presidents.
For what? For what? For what? What are the ministers out there for? This president advisor is just an abuse to give them jobs. The same way to give them, take them on travel to augment their income. This money should be going to hospitals, should be going to agriculture, should be going to develop the youths, train them in skills, not pay for pardons. There are non-jobs. Oh, none of this, security and Africa, none of these president advisors have anything valuable to give to the president. Modu Sabali as an economics and whatever it is that cannot find a job for himself, just tells you how useless he would be to advise anybody. He's running around, going around football fields. That's what he does. He's seen as a mobilizer. Now they need to create a salary for him and a title. That's all they give him. If you go to the UN, what's going to do at the UN? You see, the General Assembly have the main event. There's something called side events. Serious countries prepare for this. For the main event is technically the presentation, present the country's position, and views about global and all the things, these things. But the side events are very important. This is where you develop things and make appointments to say, okay, we'll meet at the UN these things, and we work on these things. And when we get to the UN, take an opportunity. Education minister, agriculture minister, and other people can go and meet certain organizations and environment and other things that are productive to bring back something. But in this case, they send these people just to go around, walking around, following around. That's why some countries, it's only 3 people. That goes 3, 4, 5, 6. Depends on what they will make sure they are going for a purpose. If they have side events, those people that are to play part in the side event will go. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
The first General Assembly meeting that the President Barrow went to when he became president. You know what the side event was? A Gambian, I'm not going to call his name, decided to use an opportunity because Dangote was going to be there. This guy knows that Dangote, they interacted. Now, because Gambia is like reopening again. Dangote did try business in the Gambia before with Jammeh, and he got frustrated and left. His company, Dangote company. Now, this guy approached Dangote and arranged. And Dangote said, yeah, I'll spend 30 minutes from coming out of this meeting to see him. And this was arranged. The guy was outside and introduced them and left. 7 minutes. Dangote took 7 minutes and left. And when he spoke to the guy, Dangote said to me, your guy's not serious. He said, Barrow started by pitching to him, Dangote, this guy that you can call up to say, oh, we want you to come and invest in agriculture. We want you to come and invest in cement or whatever it is, manufacturing, petroleum. Tell him, oh, my wife is planning to have a foundation. We want you to patrol us. That's what Dangote cut the meeting off, not 30 minutes and left. Because that's what they do. They go there only for that. There's nothing for what Gambia is. If they go to anything of substance about Gambia, it's because they were invited. But they don't even create the environment to mingle and get something for us. Because they don't think that way. If I ask you a question now, what is the development program for? Because we don't have one. We used to have the NDP, remember? National Development Program. Yeah. Have you had that again? Have you had that again?
Not in the news. Okay, now, Sulayman Ben Suwareh, now, if, for instance, if you are to be president or the one in charge, are you saying in context that you are going to ban travel altogether?
Don't start before they say that I'm going to launch a party. No, if I advise a president, no, at all. Travels are very important. But you make sure people travel because they have something to travel for.